Hi Crypto World, this is Yuvi Ivanova. Welcome back to the Thought Leader series on Crypto Radio. Today my guest is Daniel Jeffries, author, futurist, engineer, and serial entrepreneur. Daniel has published a number of popular articles on Medium on blockchain, cryptocurrencies, AI, and philosophy, and he's also recently launched the Daily Posthuman podcast. This interview comes out in 3 parts, since there's always lots to talk about with Dan. In part 1, we talk about the strategies for becoming a good crypto trader, which are often counterintuitive to our normal behavior. For all the links and resources from this episode, go to cryptoradio.io/Daniel1. You can hear the second and third parts of this interview at cryptoradio.io/Daniel2 and cryptoradio.io/Daniel3 once they become available. This episode is brought to you by bitguild.io. BitGuild is a new gaming platform built using blockchain technology. Their mission is to redefine the relationship between gamers and game developers. On the BitGuild platform, gamers maintain full ownership and control of their virtual items, which are stored on the blockchain. They can transfer items and progress between compatible games, and they can make in-game transactions safely and cheaply, and sometimes free. Developers who join the platform will get a direct link to an established player base with a strong community and a network of like-minded developers building on the same platform. Developers will also have the potential for direct game development funding from BitGuild. The first version of the BitGuild portal is now live. You can log in with MetaMask, buy the Plat token, and play BitGuild's first game, Ether Online. They now have a full inventory wallet system for in-game items. In the coming weeks, the marketplace will be implemented, and several independent developers are joining the site to bring their unique games to the BitGuild family. Go to cryptoradio.io/play to start playing, and join the BitGuild official Discord server to connect with the team.
Welcome to Crypto Radio. We interview the top thinkers and entrepreneurs in the blockchain and cryptocurrency industry. We also cover topics like trading, investing, and ICOs. We're your hosts, Mike Gilliland, Michael Pohl, Chris Sparks, and Yuvi Ivanova. We're entrepreneurs, crypto investors, and co-founders of a new blockchain investment platform called CoSyndicate.io. We created CoSyndicate and Crypto Radio to make crypto investing a better experience for you. If you're new to the show and you'd like a list of our top episodes and resources, go to cryptoradio.io/start. If you like our podcast, you can subscribe, share, and follow us on social media and leave us a rating and review on iTunes and elsewhere. It helps others find the show, and we really appreciate it. You can find all those links at cryptoradio.io/start.
Hey Dan, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So today I wanted to chat about some of your crypto trading strategies so you could offer our listeners some of your best wisdom that you've learned over your time trading crypto, and not just in terms of technical stuff, but also in terms of mindset and psychology and things like that.
Sure, be happy to do so.
So maybe we could talk about, we've been experiencing a bit of a bear market or sideways market recently. And in an upwards market, everybody is a genius trader. But when the market is going down or kind of sideways or stagnating, people tend to lose their enthusiasm or just don't know what to do. So what are some of your best kind of strategies that you've learned for dealing with times like this?
Yeah, this is a very interesting time because it's easy for people to lose their enthusiasm and they get addicted to the action of the market. And the market is nobody's personal ATM. It is not like getting a salary where you are constantly getting a consistent payout. It doesn't work like that. Money in the markets is made in bunches and it is lost in bunches. And there are a ton of times when it's a lot like watching the grass grow. Investing is really boring. Trading is really boring when it is done correctly. It is not about winning like you're winning in Vegas. It is not about the rush. And so this type of market shakes out a lot of the pretenders. And frankly, that is a good thing. This is where I try to teach my followers and my patrons how to think about the world more clearly. So there's a mindset of being able to see reality as it actually is versus how you imagine it to be. And last night I held my monthly meetup with my patrons. And the first thing I talked about was dealing with a crisis situation, whether that's in trading or in your life. And one of the things I've noticed is there's a simple technique to get yourself into a better place. And the first step is to breathe. The second step is to do absolutely nothing, just listen. And the third is to wait for a clear signal and then take direct action. And I'll talk about what each of those mean. Breathe is to be understood on multiple levels. There is taking a pause when things are going wrong, taking no more action. But there's also really an effective breathing technique, which is breathing from the belly, as opposed to breathing from the chest. Breathing from the chest creates fear. Breathing from the belly creates calm. We're not sort of taught this in life or in school, and it seems trivial, it seems sort of new agey or gimmicky, but I assure you it is not. And so taking deep breaths from the belly, just pushing your belly out like a giant fat man, is incredibly useful. And then the second part is we don't have a single mind. We have a cacophony of voices in our mind. And when we are under stress, it's like an argument in Congress. Everyone is yelling at each other and screaming. There's anxiety, there's fear, there's uncertainty. The instinct is to take some type of action. In fact, in society, we prize people who just take a quick action when there's a crisis. That is insane. It's literally insane, and it is not how things work. The best thing to do is to not get attached to that swirling cacophony, to listen quietly, take that breath, let the storm pass, doing nothing and listening, and eventually the storm plays itself out. It clears itself out. The emotional storm, the mental storm clears itself out. And you can begin to hear clearly what's next. And what's next might be a particular trade. It might be something that you need to take a pause from the market for several weeks and do nothing. But there's a clear voice at the end of this process that lets you know what to do definitively. And so that's what I try to teach my folks, and it's something I try to live by. One of the fellows asked me about the market, and he said that because it was a sideways market or a challenging market, he was spending a lot more time in front of the screen. And it was causing a lot of stress in his life for very little return. And I told him that was a natural instinct. And in fact, trading is doing the exact opposite of your natural instinct. What you need to do is spend less time in front of the screen. You need to spend more time away from the screen. And so I encouraged him to close his trades, if he could, to take a breath, take a pause, try to reflect on the things that he was doing, understand why he felt the need to continue to trade when it was going poorly, and to focus on one or two trades and make them with careful consideration, and then make a decision in a short period of time, set your stop and walk away and don't look at it. Know your plan. If you have an effective plan, then you can effectively trade. If you know when you're going to get in, what your stop is going to be, when you're going to move your stop, when you're going to close your position, when you're going to exit because it went against you. If you have that clear plan, you can make a clear decision. So when I place my trades, I place them and make my decision in 5 minutes or less. I place them, I get out. I might move my stops 1 or 2 times a day. I do my best not to continually look at the market. When I find that I am continually looking at the market, it's generally because a successful period had started to go against me. I might face some whipsaw where 2 or 3 trades start to get knocked out. and I start feeling that pull to stare at the screen all day, like I can deduce the mystical understanding of the market if I just stare at the stupid thing bouncing around all day. As soon as I do that, I've trained myself to have the little voice in the back of my mind that says, get the hell away from the screen. And I close my positions as quickly as possible and I step away for a few days.
I guess if we think about the market as a reflection of the psychological sentiment of millions or billions of people who are all irrational and emotional and make stupid decisions constantly or just are newbies and don't know what they're doing, then you could see that the whole market, there's nothing solid to it in a way. It's reflecting the sentiment of all these people. And if you're just following those same instincts, you're going to be making the same mistakes as everybody else, and you're just going to fail by default. So I can't remember where I saw this, but I think it's pretty obvious trading wisdom that when everybody's elated and in seventh heaven, that's the time to get out. And when everybody says, okay, it's over, crypto is dead, that's the time to buy.
That is not a bad heuristic or rule to think about. I think there's a book called Super Stocks, which is my favorite trading book of all time. This is a gentleman, Jesse Stein, who made 20,000% return in the regular markets within a few years. So a very intelligent and successful fellow. He has an entire chapter on selling. And he talks about 6 or 7 times that he made a fantastic trade, watched it rocket up 700%, 1,000%, and started strutting around like he was a genius, planning trips, talking to his friends, and then it would tank on him, and he would desperately cling to it while it crashed on him. And he went through this about 6 times before he finally figured out a series of rules for selling. He has some hard and fast rules, and I would encourage everyone to read it. Unfortunately, it's not on Kindle. It's only a hardcover, but is worth every penny. But one of the rules he talks about is when you start thinking you're a genius and nothing can go wrong and you have sixth sense of the market, sell everything immediately. And I can't tell you how many times I've experienced that myself. Sometimes I listen to it and sometimes I don't. And when I don't, every single time I've paid the price. And I think everybody experiences that.
Yeah, been there.
Of course, right? Actually, I had one of my more popular tweets was the path of the legendary trader, and I had an article about it. And it was really like 8 steps, right? The eightfold path of the trader. And one of them was basically starting off clueless and then trading too much, breaking every rule, ignoring them, not setting stops, and then just taking a massive loss. So everybody does that, and that's kind of where most people tap out and quit. But a good trader, a professional trader, is going to learn from that pain. They're going to make their pain their motivation, and they are going to go ahead and figure out what they were doing wrong. And then they start looking back at the ancient wisdom, at the old traders, trying to understand what they did. They start to realize portfolio management matters and setting your stops matter. They start to follow the rules, and then they become experts in those rules. And they begin to iterate on those rules. They stop listening to the news. They stop paying attention to others. They start to develop their own style eventually. And I think that's the path for mastery in anything in life. There's the book Mastery by Robert Greene that talks about that. He had written the 48 Laws of Power, which I'm not a tremendous fan of. I know a lot of folks are, but I did like Mastery very much. That was given to me by one of my students, and I've enjoyed it. It's probably because it fits with a path that I've already gone down myself, and so I'm just sort of recognizing it as true. But I think it's helpful for folks who've not experienced the highs and lows. And another book that kind of talks about that is Market Wizards and the follow-up, New Market Wizards, where there are interviews with these legendary traders. And inevitably, they talk about, the big loss or the big win, but the big loss is usually the one that teaches them a very hard lesson. I think it was Paul Tudor Jones, who's an incredible trader, who was a commodities trader at the time, and he remembers being in the pit and placing a massive trade for cotton, and somebody came across to offer him more, and he bought it like a macho man. And then somebody came running across the pit, saying that they had taken his, and they were selling. They were selling. And he realized in a split second that the guy running across the pit was from the team that actually owned the delivery contracts. So in commodities, there are two types of contracts. There are contracts where you are just trading cotton, but you don't actually have any cotton. And then there are the ones that you actually have a warehouse full of cotton and you're selling it. And those are the big whales in that space. And the guy who was running across the pit was the guy who had all the cotton, and he was dumping on him instantly.
Oh my God.
And he was like, everybody turned and looked at him all at once. And he realized what happened. He walked away, cleaned himself up, splashed water on his face, went to the bathroom, came back and started selling. He took a big loss, but he took a massive loss, but he was able to at least get out of the position. And he learned very quickly that you just don't play macho man with the market. You just don't pretend that you're the hero slaying the giant dragon and that you know everything. And all of these kind of mythologies about the market are just totally and completely wrong. They're totally wrong. When I talk about turtle trading, William Eckhart, who was one of the leaders of the turtles, along with Richard Dennis, William Eckhart was the quant mathematical mind, and Richard Dennis was more of the kind of gunslinging commodities trader. William Eckhart said there are two rules. In life, we basically are trained to fight through all adversity. It's our sort of hunter-gatherer mindset, where when you find those bananas, you might not find them again, so you better eat them as fast as possible. And then when everything is going wrong, you just endure. Humans are survival machines. And really the exact opposite is true in trading. You have to run like hell from adversity, and you have to do absolutely nothing when things are going well for you. You have to sit idly by and let those profits run. And when you're facing adversity, you need to cut your losses immediately and run like a total coward. That is just the complete opposite of how things work in the real world, but that is how things work in the market.
Right. Kind of relates to what we're talking about before, that the smart way to win the market is to go against kind of your natural instincts or your natural psychology.
You must be a contrarian. You must think differently than the masses, or you have no success. There's no chance. It's absolutely necessary.
Or even kind of something that you touched on as well, the idea that there's some sort of secrets or secret wisdom that if you only knew it, you would instantly be a master trader. That also relates to everything in life. People want 3 easy steps to, having fantastic 6-pack abs or to getting a supermodel wife or whatever, but it doesn't work like that. You have to spend years learning and perfecting something to be good at it, and there are no secrets actually. Or there might be some tricks that you can learn, but then you still have to know how to apply them.
You've just broken my heart. There's no 5 easy steps to supermodel wife. That's really disheartening. But the most popular articles on Twitter are still the life hack articles. 5 steps to getting the 6-pack abs, or 30 things to do before breakfast. Nobody does fucking 30 things before breakfast. Nobody does 2 things before breakfast. It is a lie. It is snake oil. And it goes back to some of our philosophical discussions in the past, it's relevant here. And that is, when you want to believe that you can have something for nothing, there are many, many people out there who are willing to sell you that dream in countless different forms. A lot of the sort of new age literature, a lot of religious literature, a lot of self-help guides are really about, hey, you don't have to do a damn thing. Just keep doing what you're doing, maybe meditate a little, maybe pray to or the Great Gazoo, whatever it is, and stay right where you are, change nothing. Don't ask questions, right? Don't make a ruckus, and everything will be great. And the exact opposite is true. The ancient secret, finally revealed, is one of the greatest scams in history. It's wonderful. It works every time on people who don't want to do anything. It's so comforting to feel like all you need to do is find this one trick and suddenly everything will work smoothly in your life. If there is an ancient secret, it's that there is no secret, right? You remember the end of Kung Fu Panda when he gets the secret scroll and the bad guy, the tiger, looks at it and he's like, there's nothing on here. This is useless. The whole thing was a scam. Kung Fu is a scam. My whole life is a scam. And that's because he is selfish and lazy. And he wants to be the dominant force. He sees everything as a win and a loss. He is vicious. He is ignorant. Kung Fu Panda sees it and sees that the secret ingredient is you. There is no secret. And he understands the true ancient wisdom. And that is it. That is the true ancient wisdom. And that is that you have to do something. You have to work. And the process is the same for anything. There's a process of being totally confused and wanting to run away and quit and not understanding what's happening, not understanding the language, not understanding what you're seeing, not understanding what people are talking about, what you're reading, and then apprenticing yourself, learning the different skills, and then starting to understand some of the bits and move them around. You get to a kind of conscious competence stage. You can, if you think about it with your logical mind, right, you can get there, but you can't really work at it at the intuitive level or the unconscious level. And then you kind of pass a different point where the tools start to become your own. The keyboard is kind of an extension of your fingers. The surfboard is an extension of your feet. The trading signals are an extension of your mind, and you're understanding them at a much deeper level, like a quantum level. And you're able to make them your own. These have all one thing in common, and that's really your own personal willpower, as well as consistency and time. In other words, every single day working at something a little bit, getting a little bit better, learning a little bit more Kung Fu. When I talk about my writing, and people are very excited about my blog on Medium, they come to me and say, oh, I love your writing. How did you get that way? I don't have the time, or, it's taking so long. A lot of young writers come to me and I say, it only took me 20 years to become an overnight success. And there were just many years where I wrote and nobody wanted to hear a word that I was saying. And you know why? Because I wasn't any good yet. It's as simple as that. I thought I was good. I thought I had something to say. And somewhere in there I did. The core of what I was trying to get to was good, but I still couldn't express myself perfectly. Only through the patient practice of doing something over a long time do you get good at anything. That is the way of all things in life. That is, I guess, the ancient secret. It's the one secret that nobody wants to hear. They will sit there and consume 50 articles on 20 ways to hack your life with this shortcut and do nothing. And if they had just invested that time in not reading those articles and actually doing the thing that they want to learn, then they would be so much further along.
Yeah, the point about the trading tools becoming an extension of your mind, it reminds me of an article that I posted recently about the spider outsourcing cognitive tasks to the spider web, and where the mind of the spider is not confined to its brain. And it talks about the ways that it works as if it's so unique, but actually humans do this to an even larger extent. And if we get over this idea that the mind is confined to the brain, and I know that for most people that's quite an esoteric idea that they can't really wrap their heads around, but if we think about the mind not being confined to the brain, then it opens up the possibilities like crazy, because then you start recognizing that everything in your environment that you use and every piece of knowledge that you use and is an extension of your mind, it is actually a part of your mind. And if those parts are atrophied, or if they're poorly developed, or if you are not aware of them, then you can't really use them. It's like a little baby that hasn't figured out how to move its arms properly. It's the same thing. And it just takes practice, takes years of practice, how to, first of all, find those things, recognize that they're there, and then learn to use them.
Yeah, all of these things that we've developed throughout history are iterations and building blocks, building on the last invention, that make it easier to think and do things in a formal way. The invention of mathematics, the invention of the slide rule, the invention of the calculator, these sort of progressive steps. Each of these tools allow us to do something in a consistent fashion that we don't do as well with our mind. These tools are an extension of us. And whether you think about it in the sort of wonderfully esoteric way that you put it, or whether you just think about it in a very simple, pragmatic way, if you aren't sort of bent towards the spiritual or towards the esoteric kind of way of thinking about it, it's still relevant, right? These tools extend our capabilities as humans. They are early augmentations. When we think about perhaps science fiction or something like that, and we think about augmenting a human body or a human mind with a computer or a prosthetic device, that's really just the extended process of something that has been going on for millennia. It's something that's been going on for thousands and thousands of years. When you build a stone tool to dig into the ground, or you build a hammer and a nail, and I talked about this at the Rise of AI conference in Berlin, a hammer and a nail are really a form of automation. It is a way to construct something in a consistent and predictable fashion. Before that, you had to go find a bunch of twigs to rope things together. It was an imperfect process. Or you had to go and find a bunch of mud to stick together your thatched hut. But when you have a hammer and nails, now you can begin to put structures together in a very consistent, predictable fashion. You can begin to build multiple levels within the housing structure or the structure that you're building. And eventually, as the materials develop, you can then build higher and higher layers to the point where the stonemasons come into the picture, where different types of putting together large curved structures come together, and you're suddenly building temples and things like that. Each of these things is a progression. And the best thing you can do is understand the tools of your time, because they are basically like leverage. And I don't mean leverage in the trading sense, but leverage in terms of the pulley sense, or in terms of the long bar. If you've ever tried to pick up something really heavy, you've ever done this science experiment when you were a kid in school, and you try to lift it with your pure brute force, a big rock or something, or a big box, and you can't do it. And then your science teacher gets out a long rod with a piece on the end and sets up a fulcrum in the middle, and you put that under the box, and you just press on it with one hand, and the box starts to come up. That's leverage. That's the power of leverage. That's what all of these tools are, is leverage and an extension to mitigate the weaknesses of the human mind and to extend the great benefits or the strengths of the human mind.
Yeah. And if we think about these things in the same way, you could see the benefit of kind of learning one tool at a time, or maybe just a couple tools at a time, instead of trying to be good at everything all at once. So sometimes when people enter a new discipline, they don't really know what to focus on, and they're just kind of trying and testing everything. And that's fine to get your bearing on things. But I do think there's a lot of value in focusing on a couple things at once, or even one thing at once, and then mastering that to some reasonable degree and then moving on to another thing?
I think it's true. I think in the beginning it is sort of play and you are looking at a lot of things. I do think it's part of the process because you don't really know what tools are valuable. You're listening to other folks telling you, well, you got to learn this and you got to learn this. And so you look at it and you try to figure out why it's valuable. But there is a moment of clarity or understanding that starts to dawn in your brain when you are looking at perhaps like an indicator. I think there was a moment where early on, I think in one of my articles, I had been kind of hot on stochastic RSI. And I kept looking at it and it just never consistently performed. And for a long time, I couldn't quite rectify that with what I was seeing. Some good traders had told me it was a useful tool, and so it must be a useful tool. And in fact, maybe it is a useful tool, but the more I looked at it, the more I started to realize like it doesn't seem to be useful for me. It doesn't seem to give me any kind of insight into the market. And so eventually I just put it down. I started to look around for other tools, focus on other indicators, other things that gave me a better and clearer picture of what I was trying to achieve. So I think it's almost inevitably part of the process that you try lots of things because you really don't know what the hell you're doing whenever you start something.
All right, that's all for this part of the interview. To get all the show notes, go to cryptoradio.io/Daniel1. To listen to more of Daniel's wisdom, stay tuned for the second and third part of this interview, which will be coming out soon. And to check out our sponsor, the BitGuild gaming platform, go to cryptoradio.io/play to start playing.
If you're new to the show and you'd like a list of our top episodes and resources, go to cryptoradio.io/start. If you like our podcast, you can subscribe, share, and follow us on social media and leave us a rating and a review on iTunes and elsewhere. It helps others find the show and we really appreciate it. You can find all those links at cryptoradio.io/start. And finally, if you want to be a sponsor of our show, go to cryptoradio.io/sponsor. Thanks for listening and we'll see you in the next episode.